All right, I will take that as the green light. So this is our Sunday late afternoon, evening book club. I'm Tyler Rayman. I'm going to be presenting the 5 a.m. club that I've been reading over the last couple of weeks. An impromptu, self-directed introduction. Tyler Raymond grew up in Southern California. Graduated high school in 2015 and proceeded to move on to college. Took 5 years, I believe, to complete my degree. Went to two different schools. Ended up graduating from Sierra Nevada University at the believe at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, potentially the end of 2020. It's been a while since I've had the dates in front of me. Graduated with a degree in entrepreneurship and outdoor adventure leadership. From there, I took about a year or so, or Tyler took about a year or so to figure out his next course of action, his next path, and that is where real estate came into his life. Since then, he has been focused on real estate. Currently has just over 100 units, I think 110 units or so in his portfolio, and looking to expand that. So that is our introduction for our presenter today. Going back to the 5 a.m. Club, the mantra of the book, if you will, or a heavily repeated phrase in the book, is own your morning, elevate your life. Written by Robin Sharma. And although in the book, a lot of what he writes is from other people's perspectives by the means of using characters to get his ideas across, Robin Sharma has a tremendous amount of just life knowledge and insight that he imparts on us as the readers. Let's see if I can click to the next page here. So, in a nutshell, as I kind of had mentioned, it's a framework for elevating one's life in all aspects. Could be relating to business, to family, to personal passions, anything in life. This book tries to teach you how to achieve that peak performance in whatever it is that you do. Robin presents it, or I should say, Sharma presents it, um, not only as a shift in mindset, but also talks about meditation, neurobiology, and lots of other things in the internal and external that we can focus on to help elevate our lives. He presents all this information in a third person narrative, almost like a parable, parable. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that one. Um, Essentially, he creates this story using other characters to act as a almost a metaphor for how we can use what they've learned in the story in the book to then better our own life. So it's not an author talking directly to a reader, but he's talking to us through the means of characters. Those four characters, four main characters that he has in the book, is the spellbinder, a billionaire, an entrepreneur, and an artist. Now, the spellbinder is almost like a life coach slash guru, I believe, is the way that he describes it in the book. Um, Spellbinder has in the book a tremendous following, is worldwide renowned for his ability to put on the most incredible motivational talks and speeches and classes for the average person. What we find out later in the book is that the billionaire, when he's introduced after the spellbinder, is actually a former student of the spellbinder. So the book starts out with this entrepreneur and this artist attending a motivational talk put on by the spellbinder. The entrepreneur and the artist do not know each other going into this talk, and throughout the first chapter or two of the book, they make acquaintances, the entrepreneur and the artist, and they start talking to this homeless man. The way that the author, that Sharma, describes this homeless man as being very eccentric and out there. And he kind of belongs and acts like he fits in with this crowd at this motivational event, but at the same time, he is so out there as a character that he doesn't quite fit. The author takes about a half a chapter or so to kind of dive into this weird, almost serendipitous, I guess, meeting between the three of them, the three of them being the entrepreneur and the artist and the homeless man. We find out later in that chapter that the homeless man is actually the same character as the billionaire. And I can go into the symbolism behind that a bit later in these slides. But all this being said, we have the spellbinder, who's this world-renowned motivational speaker, billionaire, that is his previous student, and the two others, entrepreneur and the artist, that are almost acting as the students throughout the course of this book. After they meet the homeless man that they then find out is really a billionaire at the event that they were at, the billionaire proceeds to invite the entrepreneur and the artist to his private compound in Mauritius. Mauritius is an island, I believe, somewhere could be in the Indian Ocean. I suppose I should have a picture of where it is located, but it's a pretty remote island destination, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And the billionaire has a private compound there. And so, as the entrepreneur and the artist are getting to know him, he says, "Hey, let's like." I'm kind of spacing on the way that he framed it, because ordinarily, if someone invites you to, a private compound on the other side of the world, you would be probably scratching your head thinking, "Is this guy for real?" But the way that it comes across in the book is almost matter of fact. So before you know it, the entrepreneur and the artist decide to take this leap of faith and say, "Hey, this homeless man slash billionaire is very out there, but he seems like he could provide a wonderful opportunity for learning and for growth. And so we're going to take this leap of faith and follow him out to his private compound." So then the book fast forwards to when they arrive at his private compound. The nice thing about Sharma, the author, he skips over a lot of the platitude, if you will, a lot of the details in the story that don't directly relate to the life lessons that he's trying to impart on you through the book. So there are lots of scenes, if you will, like a movie, that are kind of deleted through the book. So it sticks to the basics, that while it does follow a story, it's not telling the details of every single day within that story. So the book, over the whole middle section, proceeds to follow their storyline traveling with the billionaire. So they hit Mauritius for a week. From there, they go and they travel to Agra in India and see the Taj Mahal. From there, they go to Rome, they go to South Africa and go to Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was kept for decades. And all these places that the billionaire takes the entrepreneur and the artist are used as a metaphor for different life lessons that he's trying to teach them along the way. So an example being, when they visited South Africa, they went to the actual cell that that Nelson Mandela was kept in, and used that as a teaching moment to kind of show people how, when you're put in tough situations, there are two different ways that you can respond to it. You can either allow that to impact you negatively or positively. You can be the villain, if you will, that carries that negativity and that pain from that situation, or you can turn that pain and that negativity into a positive and come out that much stronger. And Nelson Mandela's story was a perfect way of kind of exemplifying that. So all this being said, the book kind of follows them in this kind of magical, incredible journey throughout the world, and learning about, what is the world, what is this thing that we call life along the way. The symbolism that I had alluded to earlier, it's really interesting how Sharma, the author, describes all of the characters. None of the characters have names. There's not a Bob or a Tom or a Jill or anything like that. He only refers to the characters as the entrepreneur, the artist, the spellbinder. But the interesting thing is when Sharma describes the billionaire, he's got tons of different names for the billionaire. So at times he refers to him as the eccentric billionaire. Other times it's the homeless man, the titan of industry, quirky tycoon, illustrious industrialist. He's got a thing for alliteration, which kind of makes it also a little fun to read. But all this being said, I started thinking to myself, why does he only have one name for the other characters? But when it comes to the billionaire, he's got all these different identities. Now, I would assume that Sharma did this on purpose. I don't really know. But my takeaway from that is that he's trying to show to be the best that you can be. The billionaire kind of represents the epitome of someone achieving their highest and greatest potential. And in order to do that, it's almost as if Sharma is telling us that we have to be able to take on all these different identities. That in order to reach our greatest potential, maybe that greatest potential is not within the confines of one hat that you're wearing, but you have to have the ability to wear different hats depending upon what the situation calls for. At least that's my interpretation. So I thought that was an interesting kind of below the surface example of symbolism that he includes in the story. Throughout the course of the story, there are lots and lots and lots and lots of little learning points, little ways that Sharma, through the characters, is trying to teach us about life. One of the things that he routinely comes back to is this idea of a GCA, a gargantuan competitive advantage. To use an analogy from real estate, when we're looking at a property or a market that we want to get involved in, oftentimes we'll focus our attention to markets that we have some sort of a competitive advantage in. We all have our own competitive advantages. It's just a matter of which advantage works best for us and where that leads us. So, this concept of a GCA, he says, to be in the top 5%, you must be willing to do what the other 95% can't. Seems a little obvious, but when you take that idea and you move it into how you're conducting your life, um, it almost boils down to being as simple as making the decisions that most others won't make. So he presents this in a 3-step formula. And he essentially says that by learning and growing every day, you're bound to get better awareness. And when you have better awareness, then you're able to make better choices. And when you make better choices, then you have to, at some point, get better results. And just by following that easy 3-step process, that's one way that we all can gain a GCA, a huge competitive advantage over most others, because most others aren't thinking or operating like that. Another framework that he introduces into the book, and this goes directly hand in hand with the title, the 5 a.m. Club, he introduces this concept of the victory hour. And he deconstructs it into what the author, calls the 20-20-20 formula. This formula he describes later as being very flexible. To each is their own. Everyone's going to find a different way to start off their day that works best for them. But the general idea is that when you wake up at 5 a.m., you have this victory hour in that morning before the sun comes up. And according to Sharma, the best way to spend that victory hour before the sun comes up is breaking it into 3 segments that focus on moving your body, having some sort of self-reflection time, and then also a time for growing and learning. So some examples that he gives is pretty easy. Working out for the first 20 minutes. Maybe for some people that's longer, maybe it's shorter, maybe it's just stretching, but spend your first 20 minutes when you wake up moving your body. The second segment that he tries to show the importance of doing in your routine morning is self-reflecting. So that self-reflecting could be journaling, meditating, anything. And third, but not third in that flow would be growth. So that could be reading books, reviewing your goals, anything that falls in the category of learning and growing. But the idea is that if you can start your morning focusing on those three aspects of your life, of who you are, then you're bound to set yourself up to have a phenomenal rest of your day. And when you compound that, doing that each and every day, then it provides wildly positive results down the road. Another framework that he uses, he calls the four focuses of history makers. These four focuses are a capitalization IQ, freedom from distraction, personal mastery practice, and day stacking. Each one of these concepts fall into these four main focuses that he tries to teach us in this story. If we can focus on those four main things, that is another way to amplify your ability to reach your potential. Now, a capitalization IQ, that has to do with one's ability to see their potential and make choices that actively try to reach that potential. So purely just by being conscious to the fact that your potential is up here and we're never going to get there, but that's where we want to aim to be. Just by having that mindset, we're bound to make more progress getting there than others that don't pay attention to that. Freedom from distraction, the second one, that's pretty obvious. These days, it comes in the form of phones most often, social media, that if we can simply be mindful to the distraction that those items or those things in our lives present, then we'll more easily navigate around them and be more focused in our decision making and day-to-days. Personal mastery practice, that is also pretty self-explanatory as well. And a lot of that goes into mindset. Are you actively trying to improve yourself? He presents it, Sharma, as focusing on your four interior empires. And those four can be found on the bottom right diagram there. One's mindset, one's heart set, one's soul set, and one's health set. And Sharma essentially says that if you can focus on each four of those every single day, then you, according to him, are bound to live a more wholesome life. And you can focus on the four main things that kind of regulate who you are and how you're doing. And he also introduces, finally, this concept of day stacking. One of the analogies that he uses is if you can just focus on making 1% increase on what you were doing previously, whether it's reading a book or educating yourself on any specific topic or working out. Working out is a great example where after the first week or two, probably not going to see that much change. But if you can just focus on improving 1% every single day, 365 days down the road, you're going to see a tremendous impact. Almost like delayed gratification down the road. And so if you can really focus on making each day the best that you possibly can, then the impact of that down the road will be tremendous. One of the ways that he described making all of these concepts kind of stick is through the 66-day minimum period to install any habit. So whether it's eating healthy, whether it's routinely waking up early, being on point on working out, but scientifically speaking, there is a 66-day minimum, according to Sharma, that we have to follow through in order to make these things happen. The first stage, the first 22-day period, is called destruction. That's essentially destructing the current or the previous habits that you had around this topic. So an example being, if I'm used to having ice cream every night, first thing I got to do in order to start eating healthy is I have to take down whatever habit I was currently focused on or currently doing. So I have to start by stopping eating ice cream. Then the second stage, that's middle 22-day section, is the actual process of maybe eating broccoli at night instead of ice cream and trying to change what my previous habit was. Then that third day, integration, is where things actually start to click. So a lot of information that he throws at us, and probably a lot of information that I'm going over right now and kind of regurgitating. But the only way to make any of it stick, according to Sharma, is by following this 66-day minimum period to fully install that new habit into your brain and into your routine. And this is actually the end of my slideshow, I guess. I do have a snippet from the book that I wanted to read just to kind of get give an example of how Sharma presents this information in the book, what it sounds like, what it feels like. And this is a paragraph that stood out to me in particular. So I'm going to go for it. Every human being has an instinct for greatness, a hunger for the heroic, and a psychic need to rise towards the heavens of their finest capability, whether we remember this consciously or not. A lot of us have been minimized and pushed down so much by the dark and toxic influences around us. We've forgotten all we truly are. We've become masters of compromise, slowly and steadily allowing in more aspects of mediocrity until a point arrives where it's our standard operating system. Real leaders never negotiate their standards. They know there's always room to improve. They understand that we are most connected to our sovereign nature when we are reaching for our best. Alexander the Great once said, "I am not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I'm afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion." I'm here to remind you, the billionaire carried on, that each one of us holds a profound capacity for leadership within us. And as you now know, I'm not speaking of leadership in the sense of having a title, a lofty position, or needing some formal authority. What I'm referring to is so much more weighty and exquisite than that. It's the true power inside a human heart versus the transitory power delivered by a big office, a fast car, and a large bank balance. What I'm speaking of is the potency to do work that is so great we just can't take our eyes off you. The capability to create massive value in your marketplace. The capacity to impact and disrupt an entire industry. The power to live with honor, nobility, audacity, and integrity, so that you fulfill your opportunity to make history in your own original way. Doesn't matter if you're a CEO or a janitor, a billionaire or a ditch digger, a movie star or a student. If you are alive today, you have the ability to lead without a title and make your mark on the world, even if you don't currently believe you can due to the limits of your current perception. Your perception isn't reality. It just isn't. It's just your current perception on reality. Kindly remember that. It's simply the lens you happen to be looking at reality through at this moment of your ascent toward world class. German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer wrote, "Most people take the limits of their vision to be the limits of the world. A few do not. Join them." And that is all that I have for you guys.